Welcome, everyone. This is Jim Sporer with ISSIP, the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals. And it's my pleasure today to introduce Amanda Diekman at the University of Indiana
Indiana University.
in Bloomington.
Yes, Bloomington, Indiana.
And I've just had a delightful conversation with her, and I would love it if, Amanda, you could just introduce yourself to the ISSIP community. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the research you do would be fantastic.
Sure, I'm happy to do that and happy to be here. I am a professor of psychology in psychological and brain sciences at Indiana University in Bloomington. I'm also half-time an administrator, so I'm an associate vice provost in faculty affairs, so I get to work with faculty in that role as well. And I'm here today in my role as a researcher who studies disparities in STEM and how the cultures of the STEM classroom or STEM majors in particular, students' perceptions about what engineering is or what computer science is, how those beliefs, both accurate and inaccurate, lead students to make different decisions to enter into or stay away from those fields. And the take home of much of our research is that students have a stereotype of STEM fields as not involving people, as being kind of abstracted processes that don't have as much relevance for real problems. And that when we highlight those more communal aspects of whatever the process is or the knowledge is, we get more students interested. And then we especially get more students who identify as women and students from a range of different ethnicities, first-gen students who especially find some resonance in those kinds of problems. So a lot of our work is documenting that these perceptions exist, looking at the impact of those perceptions, but then also working with faculty, graduate students, people who are in classrooms and labs to really try to bring those pieces forth so that students can get educated on the kinds of things that matter to them.
Fantastic. And could you tell me a little bit about, you mentioned some work, PRISM work that you're doing with 3M, and then you also mentioned some work you had done with someone at Google. Maybe could you just tell us a little bit about those two projects?
Sure. So I'll start with the 3M project because it's ongoing. So this is work that is funded by 3M and in collaboration with Jayshree Saith, who is the chief science advocate at 3M. And so she has worked with my team for a couple years now to really think through, well, what are the tools that we can show, provide evidence that doing these things helps our students in STEM and helps a range of students in STEM, and then how do we deliver those tools to a wide range of people? So we have a paper that's out in Scientific Reports where we showed that when we experimentally manipulate whether students are thinking about their purpose in STEM. So we simply randomly assign students to write about their challenges in their STEM major. Everybody has lots of challenges, but
Yes.
also write about why you're pursuing this path, why it's important to you, what you want to do. We have them write about that for a few minutes, and then they complete a battery of, stress measures, beliefs about their own motivation and certainty in going into the field. And we compare those purpose reflection students with students who are only thinking about the challenges. And what we see is that very brief, even less than 5 minutes of writing about why they're going into STEM led to reduced stress, more sense that they had the resources to cope with their stress, more sense that their STEM career and their STEM major was going to let them help other people, and more sense that they were going to continue into, be more certain that they're going to continue in the STEM pathway. And so we see that purpose reflection as a tool that students can use themselves. But we also didn't want to leave the burden on students to have to think about that. We wanted to try to work with STEM faculty to integrate that into the courses, into the work. And so we did some focus groups with STEM faculty where we asked them, do you ever talk to your students about purpose? Does this come up? And we mostly heard no, but when it does come up, it tends to come up in capstone seminars or in office hour conversations. And so there was a sense that when students got closer to their faculty in some way, or faculty were approachable, then these important conversations happened. But what we saw as an opportunity is, well, by the time students are there, we've already lost a lot of students. We already have students who've decided this isn't for them. And maybe it could be, right? And so we don't want to save those purpose conversations for their junior or senior year. We want to see if there are opportunities to have those early on. And
Earlier the better.
so we are working with different faculty, consulting with faculty about creating assignments that integrate purpose reflection. And so those faculty who volunteer for our project are working with people in my lab to create assignments that include this purpose reflection, and then they, implement those, and we then hear about what happened or not. And so we're creating a repository, an open access repository of those assignments, so that other people, other faculty could get a sense of like what this might look like in different places. So that's really exciting work. And we're
Great.
eager to talk about that all the time.
With it's called the PRISM work with 3M, is that right?
Yep, and it should be accessible if you go to go.iu.edu/prism. That should take you to our repository, but I'll check on that link for
Great.
sure.
Put the link in the right link in the recording as well. So what about the work with Google? What did you do
So
with?
this is actually, it was work with a professor, Dr. Bo Brinkman, who was a faculty member at Miami University in Ohio. And he since has gone to Google. And so, but when he was a faculty member in the next building to me, he and others in the computer science department and electrical engineering were, they saw big gender disparities in who is applying and graduating from their majors. And they saw this as a problem that they wanted to solve for the betterment of their departments. And they saw that I had some research and maybe a tool that we could try to collaborate and work on together. And so what I did with Bo and with Jim Kuiper, who is chair of computer science, and other fantastic faculty there, is we had funding from the National Science Foundation, scholarship funding, where we had a new program that had students apply for scholarships on the basis of merit that was defined as service expertise or experience or service vision in computer science and electrical engineering. And so in that way, we had a wider range of students apply in terms of their gender identities and their race and ethnicity identities, and a more diverse pool of students who were accepted and came to the program, even when evaluators were blind to the demographics of the students. Wow. And so really just kind of re-envisioning what these forms of engineering could be, what was valued in this context, led different students to think, okay, maybe that's for me. And then when they got there and participated in the curriculum, we also included, their intro to computer science class had a lot of, examples or case studies that thought about this from the perspective of a nonprofit client or so forth. So it really just helps students to see the ways in which the work they were doing, the problem sets they were doing, had an impact or could have an impact on the kinds of problems that they cared about. And that since then, like I said, Bo moved on to Google and is doing great things there, but Miami's School of Engineering does have, they really expanded, like that was one little scholarship program, but they have embedded that service orientation in the curriculum now. And I think it is living on and incredibly successful, and delighted for their success.
That's exciting, really exciting work. I know a lot of the ISSIP community will be fascinated with that one, so that's great. So we have this panel coming up on Wednesday, August 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, just for an hour on the digital transformation of education. And as you think about, especially, the AI era dawning and chatbots and things like that, I'm just curious if you've got any thoughts on what could be beneficial about this digital transformation, I think we briefly talked about maybe some people feel more comfortable chatting with a chatbot than a real person because they're not being judged. But what are also some of the potential harms? Like maybe this is something that gives the people that already had an advantage, bigger advantages, and doesn't really help those. So, Amanda, could you just reflect a little bit on that and share a few of your thoughts?
Yeah, I think as a person who studies people empirically, is that really would be my number one thing to keep in mind is I think we really have to ask these kinds of questions and collect data about who is using the tool, in what way are they using whatever the tool is, and then what are the impacts of that, because I think a lot of us get very excited about innovations and the promise that they might close disparities, but I think we absolutely have to ask the question and see whether they are either closing or exacerbating disparities. Because one thing I know about people is they act in ways that we don't always anticipate. And
Yeah,
so I think having our eyes out for unintended consequences is really important. So I think with any technological tool, anything that takes a resource, as an educator, I think first we have to ask, like, even if it is available to everyone, is it accessible? And part of that accessibility is comfort in using the
yes,
tool. And then part of it is thinking really carefully about what else is going on, at least in students' lives, what
right,
other commitments in terms of their work, their scholarships, their other obligations that might free up some students to learn more or play around with the tool more,
right.
um, immerse themselves in the technology more, and other students who have a different profile of commitments may not have that opportunity. And not all of that we don't always know all of that. We can't control all of that, but I think just again, asking these questions of if we think this is going to be a great thing for students and alleviate burden or provide a great shortcut in some ways, let's make sure that's happening in the way that we intended, and provide some workarounds if it isn't.
Yeah, it sounds good. So explore the service innovation, but gather data, do it systematically, and then be prepared for noticing unintended consequences and mitigating any harms that come out of it. That sounds perfect for the ISSIP community. Well,
Yeah,
Amanda, thank you so much. I will stop the recording, and I look forward to the panel discussion with you on August 28th. So
I
thank you
look
very
forward to it too. Thank you.